Okay. Hi, Maggie. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Oh, doing fine. Thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Let's see. Your company is called Pinna, right?
Yeah,
And you're doing an audio podcast for kids?
we are. Pinna actually produces dozens of podcasts and audiobooks for kids. And our newest podcast season release was today. It's a podcast called A to Z Mysteries Clue Club. We're really excited about season three's drop today.
Okay, now these are, I make the distinction between podcast, which to me is a talk show, and produced audio theater, which is like old time radio shows. So are you doing more of the dramas, that type of thing?
So we do both, fiction and nonfiction podcasts. A to Z Mysteries Clue Club is a fiction podcast that I think falls more in the vein of old time radio theater, multicast production,
Right.
multi-voiced, in studio, live recording. Yeah, we do both at Pinna, but the podcast we're talking about today is definitely more of a fictionalized theater production.
Okay, so what age groups are your shows sort of aimed at?
Yeah, so Pinna produces podcasts for kids ages 3 to 12. So in that very wide range of ages, we break it down into podcasts for kids ages 3 to 5, 6 to 8 or 9, and 9 to 12.
Okay, so for the very young kids, are you doing kind of a audio podcast version of Sesame Street? I mean, is it learning or is it entertainment?
We'd like to say that all of our podcasts are highly entertaining. And then it's like the vitamins in the brownies. There's always an educational takeaway, whether you're listening to a fiction or a nonfiction podcast. But first and foremost, it has to be fun and entertaining for kids.
Okay, so fiction and nonfiction. So fiction's going to be story type theme.
Yeah, we have an array of fiction podcasts. One that we just launched today, A to Z Mysteries, is based on Ron Roy's best-selling book series for kids called A to Z Mysteries. And we extended that world and those characters into the podcast space for the first time. And in every episode, kid listeners will be invited to be part of what we call the Clue Club and help solve mysteries alongside Ruth, Rose, Dink, and Josh, who are the sleuths in every A to Z Mysteries episode. So we did something a little bit different. If you're a reader of the book series and you're a huge fan of those mysteries, you'll want to come over and listen to the podcast. But in the podcast series, Ruth, Dink, and Josh break the fourth wall and literally talk to the listeners and invite them in to join their Clue Club as they solve mysteries in the town of Greenlawn. And kid listeners really believe that they are literally in a club. And in kid testing that Pinna does, they're shouting out answers as clues become apparent throughout the episode. They're literally talking to Ruth, Dink, and Josh as though those characters can hear them and pointing out like it's definitely under the leaf, or it's behind the bicycle, or I think, Mrs. Smith did it. So it's been a really fun experiment for us to take a book series, write wholly new stories for them, and add this interactive element for kid listeners.
Well, how do the kids actually interact?
Well, so when we talk about active listening, there's like sitting back and letting the story unfold, and there's no invitation to participate. But in every Pinna podcast, we're looking for a way to literally activate kids. As an example, in A to Z Mysteries, our new podcast, kids are literally invited by the characters in the story to help solve that mystery by shouting out clues. Or we have a game show called Extra Blurt Jr. We have two hosts who are literally talking to our kid listeners and asking them to shout out the answers to trivia-based games. In other podcasts, as an example, we have a Anytime Art Show. And in that podcast, our art teacher, Sasha, in 5 episodes in a row, helps kids to draw a self-portrait or learn pointillism or do food art. And so they're actively, literally participating in making while the host is narrating and or guiding them. So we like to call it interactive podcasting because we're literally getting kids to get up off their chair and move, or shout out the answer to a trivia game, or help solve a clue by shouting out the potential clue that's just been found and what it means.
Okay, but the hosts and kids they can't hear each other, right?
No, they can't hear each other. So it's simulated,
It's
right?
simulated, okay.
But we do kid testing. So for every Pinna podcast we first produce a pilot and we watch kids either in their homes or in the classroom or with friends listening to the podcast. And we have a hypothesis that while listening, they will actually start to shout out answers or start to talk to each other and debate, or literally get up and move and dance as the hosts are, incentivizing them to do. And it works.
Was this something born out of COVID with kids staying at home and lockdown, or had you been doing it before that?
We had been doing it before that. We launched Pinna, which is a streaming service designed just for kids 3 to 12, in January of 2019. And we do 2 things. We look the world over to acquire the very best podcasts, music, and audiobooks to bring into the service. But Pinna is also producing a very robust catalog of Pinna original programming, primarily in the form of podcasts. And at the outset, we said we want every Pinna podcast to activate kids in new and different ways. So if you read our mission, we're on a mission to activate kids to giggle, guess, figure out a problem, participate, get up and move. We really do believe that through the audio medium, we've got a really personal relationship happening with kids, and we can incentivize them to be more actively engaged.
Okay, so is this similar to, like Pinna is to children as Nickelodeon on television, but audio podcast version?
Yeah, the similarity is that all of the content we produce and bring into one streaming service is for kids. The difference is Nickelodeon's primary product is a video-based product, and we are 100% an audio streaming service. So one of the problems we're solving, if you will, is we did a lot of pre-market research before we launched Pinna, and to better understand parent consumers, teacher consumers, and kid consumers. And one of the things we heard loud and clear is we need alternate entertainment solutions that aren't necessarily screen-based. More time in a kid's media diet for non-screen-based activities. We don't think we're going to replace screen time in any way, but we think there's more room in a kid's day for audio experiences that really activate their imagination and spark thinking in ways that perhaps watching video-based media doesn't. And our hypothesis was true. So before we entered market, our research said that kids on average listen to about 20 minutes a day of audio, and the majority of that audio was music. And today, our research shows us, and our data analytics from our streaming service tell us, that the average Pinna kid listener listens to Pinna for 67 minutes a day, and 60% of all listening is to Pinna original podcasts versus audiobooks or music.
Oh, well, that's great. Well, I've always contended that audio is much more stimulating for the imagination when it's audio only, similarly to reading books, as opposed to watching the movie or watching a TV show where it's sort of all laid out for you and you don't have to do too much imagination. It's already been done. But with audio only, yeah, it's a much more stimulating thing for the imagination. And I think that that's good. I think for kids, I think we need more of that. So I'm happy to hear that you're doing something like this. How many shows do you have on your network?
Yeah, so on the service, we have over 3,000 podcast episodes,
oh, wow.
audiobooks, and songs. And as of today, Pinna has produced and are available on the Pinna service over 40 podcasts for kids. And some of those podcasts are daily shows. So there's over, 365 episodes of those already. And for other podcasts, they might be a weekly show. We produce a news show that's a weekly show with Time Inc. Their Time for Kids magazine team and Pinna have collaborated on a weekly news show that drops every Monday. And then we have fiction podcasts and nonfiction podcasts that are delivered in seasons. So most of our seasons are 10 episodes per season, and we'll sort of release a season every 6 or 8 months in any given podcast and roll those out on a weekly basis until they're all live in the service. So today, if you signed up for Pinna, you can listen to anything you want on demand, any time of day, being listened to in 148 countries and counting. And there's so much more audio coming.
Well, I guess the next question is, where is this available? Where can people come and sign up?
Yeah, so you can listen to Pinna on the web at www.pinna.fm, or you can go to any of the app stores, Google App Store, Apple App Store, or Amazon App Store, and download the Pinna app on your smartphone or iPad. In the fall, we'll be releasing the ability to sync the entire Pinna catalog of audio to your Alexa smart speaker. And some other innovative formats will be rolling out on Pinna in the fall as well. So you can listen any time of day or night, anywhere in the world, if you've got the app or you're logged in online.
Okay, and what is the cost to sign up?
So the cost to sign up is $7.99 a month for all you can eat on demand, or $79.99 a year. And we do have free listening on pinna.fm for the Pinna originals. And we've also broadcast some of our Pinna podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeart. So you can find us on some of your favorite podcast networks as well.
Okay, great. Well, this sounds very exciting. Thank you so much for coming on.